Hello everyone, my name is Rochelle Innocent and I'm the founder and CEO of Project Purpose. Welcome to our channel. Our community is focused on fostering the intellectual and character development in children. We do this through our parent-child workshops that are focused on 4 themes: autonomy, self-efficacy, compassion, and self-concept, in order to cultivate grit, perseverance, and resilience in each child. And we are so thrilled to be offering one of the first of its kind digital, virtual, and continuous learning environments, enabling parents and children to connect from all around the world. At Project Purpose, our overarching mandate is to renew and rebuild family, community, and relationships. Our different social media platforms provide us with an opportunity to have discussions and to create space for all topics that relate to family, community, and relationships with ourselves as well as with others, with a primary focus on mental health and education. More precisely, the ways that the institutions of mental health and education play a role and have played a role in our societies at large. These discussions and debates provide us with an opportunity to think critically about what needs to change within these structures for us to live up to our bold slogan: support, protect, and empower each child through youth-focused development, better known as leadership in juvenescence. We recognize that in valuing our children's leadership potential, this also translates as recreating and co-creating environments, both socially and politically, that will enable our children to thrive. For those of you who are particularly keen on the topic, we also write thought pieces every other Sunday. We have a thought piece that we just dropped this past Monday, actually. So definitely be sure to meander over to the website and check out our online content. Now, if it is the case that you are looking for a listening alternative, well, we're available wherever podcasts are playing, and we provided you with access to a few links down below. Now, as is the convention, be sure to subscribe, hit that post notification bell so that you are aware of every time we post. And of course, if you like these conversations and you want to keep them going, like, comment, and share this segment. Let's get into it. Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another segment here on Project Purpose. For those of you who are new, we cover topics that relate to mental health, mental wellness, and education on a week-by-week basis. And today's topic of discussion is mental health. On the conversation of mental health, we're going to be talking about the topic of agreeability. And this is a great topic because agreeability is a natural disposition or something that we condition ourselves to be. And it is very strongly correlated with likability. So definitely, if you are more agreeable, you are more likable, but there are other conditions that each of us bring to the table that make it so that people have expectations of our own agreeability. And so I think this is an interesting conversation to have because a lot of the conflicts or issues that I've had in my life were simply because I was not agreeable when I was expected to be. And I was only expected to be agreeable because of the things that I bring to the table. Things about who I am that society tells us means that I must be more agreeable than I naturally show up. And I have to say that I'm not naturally the most agreeable person, and it's not because I'm confrontational, and it's not because I like conflict, it's just because I don't put too much emphasis on going out of my way to get people to like me. I don't go out of my way to do that. I find that I'm a naturally pretty kind person, and if people like me, that's great. But I'm also equally comfortable if I'm not your cup of tea. And because I'm comfortable with not being everyone's cup of tea, I am comfortable not going out of my way to be agreeable. But I will tell you that this has had definitely its downfalls. And so I want to talk a little bit about agreeability and the expectation of agreeability, and also holding ourselves accountable to our authenticity if it is the case that there is a gap between how agreeable people expect us to be and how authentically we can actually be, with the disparity between those two things. And so this talk is really going to be from a personal vantage point because I can only talk from my own vantage point. And so the dimensions that I feel feed into agreeability are definitely gender. I think that depending on the gender you are, there is an expectation to be more agreeable. And I think if you are a woman, then across the board, it doesn't matter what the culture is, you're expected to be pleasing. You're expected to be a pleasant interaction, to be someone who goes out of their way to make sure that everyone else feels really great in conversation with you. So that's one of the dimensions that I really want to talk about, because I do feel like my gender plays a big role in why people have expected me in the past to be more agreeable than what I've been, and why I've experienced some degrees of violence for not showing up as agreeable as people expected me to be. And the same goes with the second dimension I want to talk about, which is attractiveness. And depending on how attractive people find you, then they expect you to be more accommodating. And in fact, I will say that it is a double whammy. If you are a woman and also attractive and you struggle with agreeability, then you're going to really rub people the wrong way. And this can be as simple as someone telling you to smile, like a stranger telling you to smile when you're walking down the street, and if you decide not to smile, if you decide not to interact or not to engage, it can become a very violent, very hostile situation. And I have experienced so much hostility and so many varying levels of violence because I'm not agreeable when people commented on my attractiveness, commented on my outfit, commented on anything, and I didn't give them the response that they were looking for. They were looking for a certain level of validation or a certain level of what I consider to be entertainment. I think that sometimes people think that because they appreciate you or because they notice you that you have to react and respond in a specific way, and if you don't, then you're not agreeable, and if you're not agreeable, then you're not likable, and if you're not likable, well then you're subject to whatever abuse, whatever punishment that they want to subject you to. This can be very detrimental, but if you're someone who really believes in individuality, as I do, and is showing up authentically as an I do, then you take the hits that come with the fact that you're just not naturally agreeable. And so the last one on this note, if you happen to be a woman, if you happen to be attractive, and if you happen to be intelligent, then you are a hard no. A lot of people really just don't want to interact with you. They don't want to engage with you because a lot of the times, even just attractiveness and intelligence, like they are polar opposites. I think there have been different studies done, and I will definitely link some studies down below so that this isn't just me talking from the hip, but attractiveness and intelligence are only positively correlated. Like if you're a man, you're attractive and intelligent as a woman, then it really does change people's perceptions of you. It makes you harder to like, right? So they talk a little bit about people who are both attractive and competent. Then a lot of people just call them the B word, right? They call them the, and a lot of the times, if it is the case that I find I'm on the receiving end of someone calling me a derogatory term, like the B word, it is because I wasn't agreeable where they expected me to be. And so when we think about our mental health and how agreeability plays into just the day-to-day interactions that we have, and how if we're not naturally agreeable, if we don't want to smile when strangers are asking us to smile, if we don't want to bend the way people want us to bend, if we don't want to be accommodating in ways that we feel don't serve us, that's going to create a lot of hostility if you fall under these specific dimensions. Like I feel like gender, attractiveness, and intelligence are key factors depending on where you are on those three spectrums in terms of how much violence you're going to potentially draw in if you're not agreeable, right? Because people expect a certain level of agreeability from you depending on these specific factors. And so I've thought a lot about this, especially when I was younger. I was much more spunkier. I had much more fight in me, and I still do have fight in me, like don't get me wrong, but I used to go head to head with different strangers, and most of them were men from every cultural background, but also from women who expected me to just be accommodating, to be pleasing, to be kind, to be overly friendly, to be overly gracious, and to just stroke their ego because they noticed me. And when I didn't, then it became a very hostile situation very quickly. And then you start to recognize it is because their assumption about you, about how that interaction was supposed to go, just proved to be false, which has nothing to do about you individually, but how they expect you to come up based on how they see you visually. And so I think that when we think about our mental health and we think about agreeability, I mean, I am just one human being. I can't change the social conditioning of most people, right? I can't. But I think if we can all think to ourselves about the expectations, the judgments, and the assumptions that we have placed on others, and if we are honest with ourselves to what extent their intelligence, their gender, and their attractiveness played into those assumptions, then we can tell ourselves, well, how fair was I? Right? How fair am I being in the way that I expect this person to show up, and in how affronting it feels when they're not showing up that way? Because while I'm not naturally agreeable, I don't go out of my way to please and to accommodate, I'm kind. I'm a kind human being. I'm a friendly human being, but I find that sometimes it's not enough to avoid some of the hostile, very uncomfortable, sometimes even violent situations that I have dealt with, men and women alike, because I think agreeability is something that not just men expect, women expect it too. And if you are not as accommodating as what they expect you to be, then it can be a really difficult social arena to navigate in. But I think that I would much rather be authentic and find different different ways to navigate around people's expectation of high levels of agreeability, which is what I find people have across the board, by just avoiding situations and circumstances that I don't feel serve me. Because I find that who I am, however I show up, is something that's been welcomed and received in environments where people were happy to see me and to hear me and to experience me as an individual. And unfortunately, too many people are walking around using those heuristics, those knee-jerk judgment calls, those assumptions that make it really hard to get to know someone if you're just looking at them superficially and not diving deeper. So on this conversation around mental health, I want you to think about your expectations by way of how agreeable people are, how angry you get when they're not as agreeable as you want them to be, and how unfair you might have been and are being currently because of your expectations of agreeability on other people, and all the dimensions I mentioned. If I am wrong, if there are different dimensions that you think are important to be considered when it comes to people's expectations of you to be agreeable, and this is something that you can deduce from some of the reactions that you have received in the past by not doing what people wanted, even if it's as simple as, oh, even comments like, you're too beautiful to not be smiling, I want you to smile for me. I mean, how many of you have had strangers tell you that they expect you to smile for me, or I want you to do this for me, or can I have a hug? Can I have a hug from you? And it's like, no, I don't know you, I don't want you to hug me. And then that turns into a bunch of expletives. And because of that, like, I've become someone who's like, I just would rather be in my corner, because I've experienced a lot of violence across the gender spectrum because of the fact that I'm not trying to be agreeable. And I do believe that gender intelligence and attractiveness play a role in that. So I think for you, as it relates to mental health in general, this isn't just specifically about your mental health. It's about how you respond and how you create an environment for the people around you, and how your assumptions play into that, and how if you're not careful about some of the unconscious bias that plays into the whys behind the expectations that you have with the people that you're meeting on a day-to-day basis, that you might be the reason why someone is being poorly received because they're not as agreeable as you thought or as you expect. And when we think about our expectations, the only times that we can really avoid having ourselves be disappointed is if we approach every new setting, every new interaction, every new engagement with no expectations at all. So that's what I wanted to come here and talk about. I want to talk about agreeability and the dimensions that play into people's expectation of agreeability, and why we should challenge that. And all of us should challenge it because it gives everyone the opportunity to breathe, to be authentic, to be themselves, without fear of reproach, without fear of violence, without fear of being doled out expletives and being called the B word and every word under the sun. I mean, I've been called it all, and all of it that I've experienced has only been because I've stood my ground, that I've not accommodated an expectation or a desire that really did not serve me. And so I wear those expletives as a badge of honor, because if it's being thrown at me because I honor myself, because I respect myself and I walk in alignment, then it's just a reflection and a projection of how you feel about yourself. So that is the food for thought that I have for you, the seed of wisdom for today. Now, before letting you go, I would be remiss if I didn't let you know that we will be going live at least twice a month, every month for the foreseeable future on our website. So definitely be sure to tune in. Now, these events are paid events, so if you do see yourself participating in our community on an ongoing basis, then I do suggest that you take a look at one of our package plans. Yes, so we do offer package plans over and above our live events, as well as access to webinars and workshops largely focused on self-mastery over and above those events. So check it out, be part of our Game Changer community, being part of the change that you want to see, allowing us a small role to play in your journey. We are on the road to 1K, so we do invite you to follow us across all of our social media platforms, and we look forward to chatting with all of you very soon. We'll talk to you later.
Like no one's listening. Some days I just feel like the world's into me.